The massive Chronix warship emerged from hyperspace like a jagged crystal tear in reality, its iridescent hull casting prismatic shadows across Earth's orbital stations. On the bridge of the International Space Station Beta, director Sarah Chen felt her heart skip as the alien vessel dwarfed everything humanity had ever built in space. The ship's arrival ended decades of debate about whether we were alone in the universe, but not in the way anyone had hoped. This is High Commander Vex Thor of the Chronix Empire, the transmission cut through every communication channel on Earth. Your world possesses quantities of dimensional crystals that belong to the Empire. Surrender them, and your species will be granted protectorate status. Resist and face extinction. Sarah's hands tightened on the observation rail. Dimensional crystals, the mysterious formations discovered in Earth's deep ocean trenches 30 years ago. The same crystals that had revolutionized human understanding of quantum physics and led to breakthrough after breakthrough in energy generation. The same crystals that had funded the most classified project in human history. High Commander, United Earth Council President James Rodriguez's voice was steady as he responded from Geneva. We welcome peaceful contact with your civilization. Perhaps we could discuss trade arrangements that would benefit both our peoples. A harsh sound, something between laughter and static, filled the channels. Trade. With primitives. Your species only achieved basic spaceflight a century ago. You barely understand the power of what lies beneath your oceans. The Empire does not trade with children. Sarah watched additional Chronix ships materialize around the first, sleek, crystalline predators ready to strike. Her neural implant buzzed with an encrypted message. Operation Lazarus is go. A slight smile touched her lips. The Chronix Empire, for all its advanced technology, had made the same mistake as so many others throughout human history. They had underestimated humanity's capacity for innovation. I apologize, High Commander, Rodriguez continued. You're right. We are young compared to your civilization. But youth has its advantages. For instance, young species tend to think differently about old technology. On cue, Sarah's neural implant projected a countdown timer in her peripheral vision. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility known only to a handful of people on Earth, humanity's response to first contact was powering up. Your attempts at diplomacy are futile, Vex Thor declared. You have one planetary rotation to surrender the dimensional crystal deposits. After that, we will take them by force. Your primitive defenses cannot hope to. The High Commander's words cut off as sensors detected a massive energy surge from Earth's surface. Sarah's smile widened as she imagined the confusion on the alien bridge. The Chronix had expected missiles, perhaps crude energy weapons. They weren't prepared for what 30 years of studying dimensional crystals had taught humanity. The ocean surface bulged upward, a mountain of water rising impossibly high as something emerged. The U.S. Prometheus broke the surface like a technological leviathan. Its hull composed not of metal, but of engineered dimensional crystal matrices that seemed to bend light and space around it. Nearly as large as the Chronix command ship, it represented everything humanity had learned about manipulating quantum reality. High Commander, Admiral Jason Chen's voice. Sarah's wife. Broadcast from the Prometheus's bridge. Perhaps we should discuss those trade arrangements after all. Unless you prefer a demonstration of how primitives think about dimensional crystal technology. Silence filled the communications channels. Sarah's sensors showed the Chronix ships powering up weapons, but their energy signatures were chaotic, uncoordinated. They had never encountered a species that had developed dimensional crystal technology along such different lines from their own. This is impossible, Vex Thor finally responded. Your species cannot have mastered crystal engineering. Our empire has monopolized this technology for millennia. That's the thing about humans, Admiral Chen replied. We don't accept impossible as an answer. We see it as a challenge. Would you like to see what else we've learned to do with your monopolized technology? The Prometheus's crystal matrix hull began to pulse with energy patterns that defied conventional physics. Where the Chronix used dimensional crystals for straightforward power generation and weapons, Humanity had discovered they could be used to manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. "This is your final warning." Vex Thor's voice carried an edge of uncertainty now. "Submit to the Empire or—" The Prometheus vanished, reappearing instantly behind the Chronix fleet. Not through conventional faster-than-light travel, but through what human scientists called quantum position trading, using dimensional crystals to swap 2 points in spacetime. "Or what, High Commander?" Admiral Chen asked. "You'll show us how limited your understanding of dimensional crystal technology really is. The Empire has had these crystals for thousands of years, but you stopped innovating. You stopped asking, what if? That's something humanity never stops doing." Sarah watched through the station's quantum-enhanced sensors as more human ships emerged from hidden facilities around the globe. Each vessel represented a different approach to dimensional crystal technology. Some bent light and gravity, others manipulated probability fields, and some seemed to exist in multiple spaces simultaneously. "This is impossible," Vex Thor repeated, but this time his words carried fear rather than contempt. "No," Sarah whispered, though only those on the space station could hear her. "This is humanity doing what it does best, proving the impossible wrong." The battle that followed would be remembered throughout the galaxy as the day everything changed. Not just for Earth, but for every civilization that had lived under the Chronix Empire's shadow. It was the day the galaxy learned that true power didn't come from porting technology, but from the endless human drive to ask what if, and never accepting impossible as an answer. For 3 days after humanity's first engagement with the Chronix Empire, the galaxy held its breath. Admiral Maya Patel stood in the Prometheus's quantum observation chamber, watching dimensional rifts ripple across space like northern lights. Each distortion represented a Chronix battle fleet jumping into the Sol system, their crystalline ships carrying the accumulated arrogance of 1,000 years of unchallenged dominance. "They're still using standard formation patterns," Lieutenant Zara Wong reported from her sensor station, her neural interface projecting tactical data through the chamber's holographic display. "No adaptation to our quantum position capabilities." Maya allowed herself a small smile. The Chronix's greatest weakness wasn't their technology. It was their inability to imagine using it differently. "How many ships?" 300 and counting," Zara replied. "Largest fleet concentration in recorded history, according to the data we pulled from their systems during the first encounter." The Prometheus's quantum core hummed beneath Maya's feet, its engineered crystal matrices singing in frequencies that made conventional physics weep. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, each connected to the ship through neural interfaces that humanity had developed by studying dimensional crystal properties the Chronix had never even theorized. "Message from Earth Defense Command," Communications Officer David Chen announced. "Operation Checkmate is authorized." Maya nodded, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. "Send the signal to all ships. Execute pattern Schrödinger." Across the solar system, 30 human vessels, each unique in its application of dimensional crystal technology, began to move. The Chronix fleet commanders watched in confusion as their sensors showed the human ships simultaneously appearing in multiple locations, probability fields making it impossible to determine which signatures were real. "Admiral," Zara's voice carried an edge of excitement, "they're deploying their standard countermeasures, exactly as predicted." The Chronix ships launched fields of crystal energy designed to disrupt conventional quantum tunneling. It would have been devastatingly effective against their own technology. Against human innovations, it was like trying to stop a submarine with an anti-aircraft gun. "Now we show them why humans make dangerous enemies," Maya said. "Execute quantum fold maneuver." The Prometheus's crystal matrix reconfigured, applying principles of quantum entanglement in ways the Chronix had never imagined. Rather than trying to move through space, they changed space itself. Reality rippled as human ships created localized pockets where the laws of physics became more suggestion than rule. Multiple Chronix vessels showing signs of confusion. Tactical Officer James Martinez reported. Their targeting systems can't adapt to our probability fields. Maya watched through the quantum observation chamber as the battle unfolded. Where the Chronics fought with rigid formations and conventional tactics, human ships danced through space like quantum ghosts. The Prometheus led the charge, its engineered crystal hull bending reality around it. "They're launching their primary weapon," Zara announced. "Crystal Resonance Cascade." The Chronics flagship released a wave of energy designed to shatter dimensional crystal matrices, a weapon that had brought countless civilizations to their knees. But humanity had learned different lessons from the same technology. "Initiate quantum harmonic response," Maya ordered. "Show them what happens when you think outside their box." Instead of trying to resist the crystal resonance cascade, the human ship's matrices began to vibrate in harmony with it. Energy that should have torn them apart was instead absorbed, redirected, and amplified. The Chronics watched in horror as their own weapon was transformed into a quantum feedback loop. "Man," David's voice carried amazement even after months of training. "We're receiving surrender signals from multiple Chronics vessels." Maya nodded. "Broadcast on all frequencies. To the Chronics Empire, this is what happens when you mistake technological advantage for superiority. Humanity doesn't just use technology. We reimagine it. We rebuild it. We make it our own." The quantum observation chamber filled with light as dozens of Chronic ships began powering down their weapons. Not just their weapons, their entire crystalline hulls went dark as commanders faced something they'd never encountered. The possibility that their understanding of dimensional crystal technology was fundamentally limited. "Admiral," Zara reported, "we're detecting quantum communications between Chronics vessels. They're requesting technological exchange protocols. They want to learn." Maya smiled. This was humanity's true victory, not defeating the Chronics Empire, but forcing them to question their assumptions, to imagine new possibilities, to learn. "Send them our response," she ordered. "Tell them humanity is willing to teach, but only if they're willing to understand one fundamental truth. There is no such thing as primitive thinking. There are only minds too primitive to recognize innovation." As the remaining Chronic ships stood down, Maya watched the quantum distortions in space slowly settle. Humanity had won not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through their most powerful weapon, the ability to look at the familiar and see new possibilities. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, Maya reflected, was exactly what humanity did best. Changing the impossible into the inevitable, one innovation at a time. Dr. Aisha Rahman stood before the assembled representatives of 17 formerly subjugated species, her quantum display showing the fundamental principles that had allowed humanity to revolutionize dimensional crystal technology. The conference chamber aboard the International Space Station Alpha buzzed with neural interfaces translating her words into dozens of alien languages. "The Chronics Empire's mistake wasn't technological," she explained, gesturing to the swirling quantum equations. "It was philosophical. They saw dimensional crystals as a tool of power. We saw them as a gateway to understanding reality itself." A Viridian delegate, their crystalline skin refracting light in complex patterns, raised an appendage. "But how did your species develop these applications so quickly?" "The Empire controlled this technology for millennia." Aisha smiled, remembering her own breakthrough moment in the deep-sea research facility, where humanity first unlocked the crystal's secrets. "Because we didn't know what was impossible. The Empire's knowledge became their limitation. They only saw what the crystals could do. We saw what they could be." The quantum display shifted, showing how human scientists had approached dimensional crystal research from hundreds of different angles. Video game designers contributed to quantum field manipulation theories. Artists helped visualize multi-dimensional space. Children's questions about what if led to breakthroughs that had eluded Chronic scientists for centuries. "Look here," she highlighted a particular equation. "This isn't just mathematics. It's imagination given form. We discovered that dimensional crystals respond to creative thought patterns. The more you think outside conventional physics, the more they reveal. The chamber erupted in discussion as representatives began to understand. The Chronix Empire hadn't just hoarded technology. They had suppressed innovation itself, forcing every species to follow their rigid understanding of dimensional crystal science. Admiral Patel reports Chronix fleet movements near the Centauri sector. Her neural interface whispered in her mind. The war wasn't over. The Empire's core worlds still resisted change, launching desperate attacks to maintain their power. But even as the military conflict continued, Asia knew the real revolution was happening here, in this chamber. Every species represented had lived under Chronix dominion, their scientific development carefully controlled and limited. Now they were learning not just new technology, but new ways of thinking. "Watch this," she commanded the quantum display. The holographic representation of a dimensional crystal began to pulse with complex energy patterns. This is how we communicate with the crystals themselves, not through force or control, but through understanding, through questioning. An Exilian scientist, their tentacles waving in excitement, transmitted a complex series of thoughts through their neural interface. "You mean the crystals are aware?" "Not exactly," Asia replied. "But they respond to consciousness in ways the Chronix never imagined. Their rigid military hierarchy couldn't conceive of technology that evolved with its users. They tried to master the crystals. We chose to learn from them." The display shifted again, showing how human quantum ships created their reality-bending effects. It wasn't through brute force application of crystal energy, but through subtle manipulations of quantum fields, treating space-time itself as a collaborative medium rather than something to be conquered. "The Empire's power came from keeping knowledge scarce," she continued. "Humanity's strength comes from making it abundant. Every breakthrough, every innovation we discover is immediately shared, tested, questioned, and improved upon by others." A soft chime interrupted her presentation. "Priority message from Prometheus Actual," her neural interface announced. "The Chronix core worlds have launched their superweapon. Operation Paradigm Shift is now active." Aisha took a deep breath. They had known this moment would come, when the Empire would resort to their final option, a weapon that used dimensional crystals to tear apart the fabric of space-time itself. A weapon that, by their understanding, couldn't be countered. "Representatives," she addressed the chamber, "what I'm about to show you isn't just technology. It's proof that the greatest weapon against tyranny is the free exchange of ideas. The Empire thought they could maintain control by keeping everyone isolated, limited in their understanding. But when minds from different cultures, different species come together, the quantum display erupted with new equations, new possibilities. The assembled aliens watched in awe as humanity's solution to the Empire's superweapon unfolded before them. Not a bigger weapon, but a deeper understanding of how reality itself worked. "This," Asia said quietly, "is how we defeat an empire. Not by destroying them, but by showing them, showing everyone, that the universe is far more wonderful and strange than they ever imagined, and that the only true law of physics is that there's always more to discover." As the delegates began transmitting this new knowledge to their homeworlds, Asia knew the real war had already been won. The Empire's weapon might tear space apart, but humanity had learned how to weave it back together in new and beautiful ways. And more importantly, they had taught others to do the same. The revolution wasn't in the technology. It was in the simple human truth that the best way to understand something is to share it, question it, and imagine it anew. The Chronix superweapon tore through space like an angry god, dimensional crystal energy warping reality in its wake. From the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral Maya Patel watched the wave of destruction approach Earth's combined defense fleet. Behind her ships floated vessels from 17 alien civilizations, each incorporating humanity's revolutionary understanding of crystal technology in their own unique ways. "Time to quantum cascade point?" she asked, her neural interface pulsing with data from 100 different sources. 3 minutes, Lieutenant Wang responded. The Viridian ships report their crystal harmonics are aligned. Nexilian quantum matrices are synchronized with ours. Maya allowed herself a moment of pride. 2 months ago, these species had been subjects of the Empire. Now they stood as allies, their ships incorporating elements of their own cultural understanding into humanity's quantum theories. Where humans had learned to bend reality, the Viridians had discovered how to sing to it. The Nexilians brought their collective consciousness to bear on quantum calculations. The Empire expects us to respond with force, Maya transmitted to the combined fleet. They believe their weapon cannot be countered, but we're not here to counter it. We're here to change the rules. Dr. Raman's voice came through the quantum link, her excitement palpable even through the neural interface. All ships confirm quantum resonance patterns are stable. We're ready to attempt the impossible. The impossible. Maya smiled. How many times had humanity heard those words? How many times had they proven them wrong? Execute Operation Symphony, she commanded. The combined fleet began to move, not in the rigid formations the Empire relied on, but in patterns that reflected each species' unique approach to dimensional crystal technology. Human ships created probability fields that made space itself uncertain. Viridian vessels emitted crystal harmonics that resonated with the quantum fabric of reality. Nexilian ships linked their consciousness into vast quantum computing networks. Enemy weapon approaching critical mass, Tactical reported. Traditional space-time cohesion failing in sectors 7 through 12. Maya watched through the quantum observation chamber as reality began to tear apart. The Empire's weapon was designed to rip open space itself, creating rifts that would swallow entire star systems. But where they saw destruction, humanity had seen possibility. All ships, initiate quantum harmony protocols, she ordered. Show them what happens when different minds approach the same problem. The Allied fleet's dimensional crystals began to pulse in synchronized patterns, but unlike the Empire's brute force approach, these pulses were infinitely complex, each species contributing their own understanding to a greater whole. Human innovation, Viridian harmony, Nexilian unity, all flowing together into something entirely new. Quantum resonance achieving critical threshold, Dr. Raman reported. The tear in spacetime is responding to our combined frequencies. Through the observation chamber, Maya watched as the impossible unfolded. The Empire's weapon had torn reality apart, but the combined fleet wasn't trying to prevent this destruction. Instead, they were using it, channeling that energy through their networked dimensional crystals in ways the Empire had never imagined possible. They're powering up a second wave, Tactical warned. The Empire's flagship is preparing to. The warning cut off as every sensor in the fleet registered something unprecedented. The tear in spacetime wasn't closing, it was transforming. Where the Empire had created destruction, the combined understanding of multiple species was creating something new. By all the crystal matrices, a Viridian commander breathed across the quantum link. We're not just repairing spacetime. We're rewriting it, Maya finished. All ships maintain quantum harmony. Let them see what happens when you stop trying to control reality and start trying to understand it. The Empire's weapon faltered as its energy was caught in the quantum symphony of the Allied fleet. Every ship, every species contributed its unique perspective to the whole. Human creativity, Viridian resonance, Nexilian unity, all working together to turn an act of destruction into an act of creation. Where the Empire had torn space apart, new possibilities were forming. Quantum corridors that defied traditional physics, dimensional spaces that existed between traditional reality, a new understanding of the universe itself, born from the combined knowledge of multiple civilizations. Imperial flagship is powering down, Tactical reported, awe evident in their voice. They're requesting communication. Maya straightened in her command chair, feeling the weight of the moment. Put them through. This is impossible. The Imperial commander's voice shook. What have you done? We've shown you what happens when you stop thinking of power as something to be hoarded, Maya replied. Every species brings its own understanding, its own perspective. Together, we don't just use technology. We transform it. We grow with it. As the Imperial fleet stood down, Maya looked out at the transformed space before them. Humanity had done more than defeat an empire. They had shown the galaxy that the truest power lies not in controlling knowledge, but in sharing it, in letting it grow and evolve as different minds brought new perspectives to old problems. The symphony of stars played on, a testament to what was possible when the impossible was seen not as a barrier, but as an invitation to imagine something new. 1 year after the Battle of the Quantum Symphony, Earth hosted the first Galactic Congress of Innovation. The crystalline spires of New Alexandria Station rotated gently in Earth's orbit, its halls filled with representatives from over 100 species, former subjects of the Empire now free to pursue their own paths of discovery. High Commissioner Elena Santos stood before the assembled delegates, her neural interface projecting real-time translations across the quantum network that now connected the reformed galaxy. Behind her, a dimensional window showed the transformed space where the Empire's weapon had torn reality, now a nexus of quantum corridors and dimensional spaces that served as highways between civilizations. A year ago, we faced extinction, Elena began, not just of our species, but of innovation itself. The Empire didn't just control technology. They controlled how people thought about it. Today, we celebrate not just our freedom, but the revolution in thinking that made it possible. The quantum displays around the chamber activated, showing how different species had taken humanity's initial breakthroughs with dimensional crystal technology and developed them in wonderful and unexpected ways. The Viridians had created crystal matrices that responded to emotional resonance. The Nixilians had developed quantum computing systems that operated across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Empire's greatest fear wasn't that they would lose control of dimensional crystal technology. Elena continued. It was that others would discover new ways to use it, ways they hadn't imagined, ways that proved their understanding wasn't absolute. In the year since the Empire's fall, the galaxy had changed more than it had in the previous 1,000 years. The rigid hierarchies and controlled development that had characterized imperial rule had given way to an explosion of creativity and collaboration. Humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't our technology. Elena gestured to a holographic display showing the quantum corridors. It was our willingness to question everything, to share knowledge rather than hoard it, to see limitations as challenges rather than barriers. The display shifted to show the newest breakthrough, a joint project between human, Viridian, and Nixilian scientists. They had discovered that dimensional crystals could be used to bridge not just space, but understanding itself, allowing different species to share perspectives and experiences in ways previously thought impossible. The Empire ruled through isolation. Elena's voice carried across the chamber. They kept species separate, controlled, limited in their development. But they forgot something fundamental about intelligence itself. It yearns to connect, to share, to grow. A soft murmur ran through the assembly as the quantum network pulsed with shared emotions and ideas. This, too, was new technology that didn't just transmit information, but understanding. The barriers between species were falling in ways the Empire had never imagined possible. Look around you, Elena smiled. Every species here brings its own perspective, its own way of seeing the universe. The Viridians teach us that reality responds to harmony as much as force. The Nixilians show us that consciousness itself can shape quantum fields. And humanity, we bring our endless ability to ask what if. The quantum displays showed new ships under construction in orbits around a dozen worlds. Not copies of human designs, but unique expressions of each species' understanding of dimensional crystal technology, each incorporating elements from others, growing, evolving, becoming something more than any single civilization could have created alone. This is humanity's true legacy to the galaxy, Elena concluded, not the defeat of an empire, but the birth of something greater. A civilization where knowledge flows freely, where different perspectives are celebrated, where the impossible is seen not as a limit, but as the next horizon to explore. As the assembled delegates rose in applause, Alina looked out at the transformed space beyond the station. The quantum corridors shimmered with possibility, each one a testament to what could be achieved when different minds worked together. The Empire had sought to control reality itself, but humanity had shown the galaxy a greater truth, that reality was not something to be controlled, but something to be explored, questioned, and reimagined together. The age of empire was over. The age of innovation had begun, and somewhere out there, new impossibilities waited to be proven wrong by minds working together in ways the universe had never seen before. In the end, humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy wasn't their technology.